Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Little News Ears AJ News. Today, we will be interviewing Toby Price, a creator and educator. Toby, thank you so
Hey,
much for being on our show. To start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
sure, thanks. I am a dad, a stay-at-home dad. I have three kids, two of which have autism, and I call them kids, but they're 22 and 23. Um, but they're pretty severe and on the spectrum. I have one who's in college for paralegal. I've been married for 25 years. I used to be a principal until I got fired, but but now I'm a stay-at-home dad, a wannabe trophy husband. I write my own and illustrate my own kids' books. That's a little bit about me.
So you often say the phrase "the comeback is always better than the setback." What does that phrase mean to you?
Well, I picked it up when I was terminated 4 years ago for reading a book to kids. A funny book, a book that I love. It's called "I Need a New Butt" by Don McMillan. It's a hilarious book. And during that time, I was pretty bummed, pretty upset. And pretty sad. We've been fighting it through appeals and whatnot, and we weren't having a lot of luck. And I just wanted to focus on what's next and what could be good instead of focusing on the bad things that happened in the past, if that makes sense. So, hopefully, now that we're on the upward side of it, the comeback is better than the setback. We recently had a win in Mississippi State for termination, and they're sending everyone back to court. District has to make amends, basically back pay and reinstatement, possibly, and a whole bunch of other things. So it's kind of like focusing on the good instead of the bad, and just moving forward.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So, what
Thanks.
inspired you to become both an educator and an author?
Oh wow. Well, to be an educator, when I was little, I read a lot of comic books, and I loved Peter Parker, Captain America, especially Spider-Man. And I wanted to grow up to be a superhero, but would look terrible in tights. So I became a teacher instead. It's the next best thing. Um, but while I was teaching, I really fell in love with sharing books and stories. And after I had kids of my own, we started making up our own stories, and that's kind of how, I came up with the idea for the Almost True Adventures of Titus the Monkey. Those are the names of my book series that I've put out so far. I just love making up stories and love telling stories. They started when I was waiting tables during college and bartending. I started making up stories about my kids, and now they're turned into books and comics and cartoon strips, etc.
Okay, so where did you get the ideas for the characters in your first book?
Thanks. They're actually all based on people in my family. Addison, McCade, and Marley Kate. That's what they were like when they were little and younger. And my wife. My wife is featured heavily in those books. A lot of people say that Titus the monkey, and he inadvertently became me. Like I'm not in the stories a lot. And a lot of folks said, Titus reminds me of you, what you would say or do if nobody told you not to. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of it. And most of the other characters that are in the stories, like the in the first book, there's the lady who they said it's kind of smells old and smells like cheese. She is based on someone that we really did encounter in a grocery store who said some ugly things to Addison and had a problem with her shopping cart afterwards. So almost everybody in those books are based on real people.
Cool. So, what were some of your favorite books or comics when you were a teen?
Oh wow! Growing up, like I said, I loved Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Mhm.
Um, Books. It took me a while to get into books, but once I did, of course, I was into Harry Potter for so long. But my favorite books were probably A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. Those they were dark, they were funny, they were action packed, they were a little just like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next, and mysterious. I loved those books so much and cannot recommend them enough to anybody today.
Okay, so why do you think reading is important, and what advice would you give to kids who don't enjoy reading quite yet?
Oh wow, that's a great one. Reading is to me is kind of like an equalizer when it comes to things. I grew up, my dad was a chef, my mom cleaned houses for a living. And when I say it was an equalizer, I grew up, in a trailer park. But I was really good at reading, and reading helped open up other doors for me at school and scholarships and I ended up getting my bachelor's degree. I ended up getting my master's degree. And I think I wasn't really good at a lot of things, but I could read really well and comprehend really well and understand it. And so, reading opened up a lot of doors for me. I may not have been the richest and the prettiest, but I was pretty smart because of the books. Now, for people who don't like it, I get that. When I was little, I didn't like it either. And it turns out it wasn't just because reading was boring, it was because I wasn't really good at it. And it was hard for me to find books that like I could connect with and book characters that I could connect with because a lot of my teachers, and no fault of their own, I had wonderful teachers. A lot of my teachers were girls, and a lot of times girls would pick books that girls would like. And that's cool. I get that. But eventually I was able to start finding books that I could kind of connect with and had a relationship kind of with the characters, whether it was Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes, which, if you don't know who they are, they're amazing. Or, Percy Jackson, loved me some Percy Jackson. Maniac McGee by Jerry Spinelli. That's an oldie, but a goodie. There's so many that I was able to like kind of connect with and see a bit of myself in that it really helped me practice and get better at reading. And once I got better at it, I loved it.
Yeah, that's great. What do you hope that kids and teens take away from your books?
Oh, wow. I never really thought about it before because the books are about a family with autism, but they're not about autism. But if I were to say I want them to take away one thing, I guess it would be to look out for vulnerable people. And I say that like in the first book, somebody says something to my daughter and she can't say anything back. She can't speak. So Titus takes it upon himself to try to fix it his way. And it doesn't always work out the right way. But, throughout each of those stories, he's looking out for vulnerable people in those stories. He looks out for them. He doesn't always do it right, but he is looking out for them. In the first book, it's the lady in the grocery store at night. My daughter, it's a true story about when my daughter left the house in the middle of the night and he goes out to try to rescue her. In the third book, which I'm finishing up and getting ready to publish somewhere, um, somebody has stolen some of my son's toys and he's going to go get them back. And he ends up getting in a fight with some blue jays in the neighborhood to get the toys back. So, I think there's a theme of looking out for vulnerable people. And I hope that people would take that away from that and look out for vulnerable people and just be kind and be empathetic. Um, don't always do like Titus does, but just try.
So, who has inspired you the most in your life or career?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Okay, if I had to pick, like, everybody has like celebrity heroes. If I had to pick celebrity heroes, one that I never had met, but I just love would be Jim Henson. Because Jim Henson started the Muppets, Sesame Street, Kermit the Frog, that whole thing, and I'm really in awe of the fact that he created something that's gone on long after he's gone, and that's really just not only impressive, just really kind of cool. And the way he always told folks that he wanted to leave the world a little better than he found it. Well, he left behind something that helps make the world a little bit better, in my opinion. The Muppets and Sesame. I love me some Muppets. Um, Another person, Mick Foley, the wrestler. He used to be a wrestler. I love me some Mick Foley. Mick Foley went above and beyond to try to make people, happy and pleased. And he always got back up no matter how many times he got knocked down. And, recently with my termination, I leaned on that a lot. You can get knocked down as much as you want. You can knock me down as much as you want, but I'm gonna get back up and try again. The biggest though in my life would be probably my family. My family. My wife is just the most patient, most intelligent person in the world. And my kids, they try so hard every single day to go out into a world that really doesn't understand them so much. And so I'd say probably my family. Like I said, I love me some Mick Foley and Jim Henson, but my family, that's where I draw a lot of my inspiration from.
Great. So, if you could give your younger self, one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, wow. My younger self, one piece of advice. Okay, this is totally serious, and you guys can laugh at me because I just turned 50 and I'm old now. All right. But it would be always wear good shoes and socks. Take care of your feet and your legs and your knees. Take care of them. If you play sports, put on some knee pads. Always wear some good socks and some shoes. Stay away from sandals and flip flops. Take care of your feet and your legs because if you don't, you will totally regret it when you get older.
So, what advice would you give to teens when they feel adults don't always understand them?
How you doing? Something I told my daughter the other day, my youngest, she just turned, well, she's about to turn 20. is, I told her, she said, well, what do you think? And I was like, you know what? I said, I wish I had an answer for you, but I said, I'm learning how to be a parent just like you're learning how to be, a 20-year-old. I'm making this up as I go. There's no book. I said, there are some books, but I mean, there's no guidelines. I'm learning how to be a parent as I go. So, I'd have to tell some teens that if your parents don't always get you, try to just understand that sometimes, they're doing the best they can or the best they know how. And if they don't always get it, it's just, man, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard being a parent. It really is. And just to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, parents aren't always right, but man, sometimes just have some empathy for the fact that they're learning how to be a parent, just like you're learning how to be a teen or an adult and whatnot. So that's what I would go lean on.
Yeah, so how do you think that AI has changed reading and writing habits today?
Oh, wow, that's a great one. I don't like AI for art because I love to draw, but at the same time, I think it has a place. I think it has a place. It's a tool, and I don't want to see it not used as a tool. Like mathematicians use calculators, so people who create should be able to use some type of technology, but I just don't want to see it get overused. So I think with writing, I think sometimes it gets maybe overused, in not in always the best ways where people will forget how to. Like if you want to put a paragraph in and have the AI tell you to make it more engaging, make it clear, that's fine. But then take that paragraph and put it in your own words again to try to borrow those ideas. Don't just like have it spit it out and turn something in. So I think if used properly, I think it's going to be a great tool. If not, I think it's just going to be kind of repetitious, especially when it comes to like books and stories it creates. I mean, you can always tell when something's AI. You really can. And you're good. You can tell when it's just AI. So I think if use a tool, awesome tool, but if you use it wrong, it can do some damage. Same thing with AI. If you use it wrong, it could do some damage.
So how do you stay motivated when something is challenging?
Oh, oh, wow. Hmm. Always when I look motivated, kind of and make myself feel motivated because I don't want anybody of those kids to see me down and see me dragging. So I mean, I would get that motivation from them. So I think now I get it from my own family. I don't want to be down and dragging. I try to stay upbeat, positive. They'll tell you. I always tell them in the morning time, "Come on, we're gonna be positive, motivated." Woo! I used to say that in my classroom too. Drove people crazy, but I just kind of pump myself up if I have to. Pump myself up just to stay that way because nobody wants to be around somebody that's negative all the time. So, I just try to keep myself up, 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 boom, 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 that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's great. So what are you most excited to work on next?
My ADHD. Excited to work on next. Okay. I have a third Titus the Monkey book where he battles the evil blue jays in our neighborhood, which are true also. They're terrible. We have blue jays in our neighborhood. They're so mean to the cats. They steal things. They're rough. Again, almost true adventures of Titus. I have my nonfiction book that I've almost finished with, that I'm trying to find a publisher for, which, because I don't want to publish it myself. I'd rather somebody else do it for me. But after that, I have I have another book. It's a kid's book, so y'all can laugh at me when I tell you this, but it involves a polar bear and who might be on the autism spectrum and a narcoleptic capybara. That's the one I'm pretty excited to keep working on. Um, it's a kid's book about a narcoleptic capybara and a polar bear. The capybara keeps falling asleep, and the polar bear, he's not in the right he's not in the right setting, so he's starting to feel really bad about himself and can't do. So I'm really excited to start working on that because it's got a cool story, and I get to draw a lot of different characters, and I'm kind of mixing up my style a little bit from the Titus book. So that's what I'm looking forward to next. My nonfiction book, and I call it Otto and Ollie, the capybara and the polar bear. That's Otto and Ollie. I'm pumped.
That's so exciting. Toby, thank you so much for taking
Awesome.
the time to tell your interesting story. Remember, you can't change
Awesome.
what has already happened, but you can change the future. Until next time, goodbye for AJ News.